All right, so we're gonna jump right into it, right into the deep end tonight, and I want to ask a quick, kind of a rapid fire question to all three of our panelists just to get us warmed up. And the question is, each of you have a certain expertise in helping people build wealth in different ways. So you help people plan for wealth, you help people connect to other people. But the question is, when you think about the biggest mistake people make when it comes to love and money, what do you see most often from your vantage point? And we'll start with Arby.
When it comes to love and money, as a dating coach and a matchmaker for singles, I think one of the biggest things that comes up is the lack of communication. Because you can be in love, but if you're not talking about money and the future of how you're going to spend that money, that's a red flag. And so everyone has a different relationship with money. Some people want to keep up with the Joneses. Other people want to save. Some people invest. Some people have student loans. Some people have bad credit. It's not a bad thing, but those are all things that need to be talked about when you're dating before you get married.
One thing I'll say is, well, shout out to y'all for showing up. Shout out to Ryan for the first live podcast. I'm gonna answer your question in a second, but I just want to, give Ryan his flowers because to put this type of room together, he's literally leveling up everyone in this room. And so back to the question. So what she just mentioned is lack of alignment, right? Misaligned expectations. And if you start to have these conversations, let's say you're 3 instead of day 1, or maybe day 5, it can really make things break apart. And so you just want to make sure you're aligned in the very beginning, have the right expectation, make things much smoother. But love to hear what Sheneya has to say about that.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to add to what they both said. A really important thing to understand that when you do get married, you are now legally binded, right? Not just in the court of law or under God, but also in the eyes of the IRS, right? So now you have the option to file your return jointly, or you can file separately. And there are several different reasons why couples may choose to file joint or separate. A big part of understanding how to go about that is understanding where your partner is starting from. So many people go into relationships unaware of what their partner is bringing to the unionship, right? Are we bringing some student loans that we haven't handled? Are we bringing some, foreclosed homes? Because once you're legally binded under the court of law, guess what? They ain't just coming for your spouse. Y'all are one. Y'all are one. Again, under the court of law, under God, and in the eyes of who? The IRS.
I think that's actually a good bridge into the next question. So I'm glad you mentioned it. So this question is actually for Sheneya more so. So you, to Arvia's point, she gave the facts or the research behind what happens when people share, the assets and whatnot. But you see in the work that you do, you support individuals, you support entrepreneurs getting their taxes done, businesses. And so you see the financial side up close and personal. You see the, the taxes, the debt, the business, the real estate, the holdings, all of that. So my question for you is, what financial red flags do you think people should, be looking out for or pay attention to early on in dating, but often maybe ignore and don't know about or don't ask about?
Yes, that's a great question. So I'm not even going to hold y'all. I can count with both of my hands how many times we've had a spouse email us like, hey, I know we typically file jointly, but do you mind showing me what it looked like if I filed separately from my spouse, right? And it could be a lot of times it's because that spouse may have just so much debt and they were entitled to a refund, and because again they're joined under the eyes of the law, God, and who else? They gonna take their money, right? And she's like, well, I've had 3 kids, we get all this money back, and then they just take it all, right? So what it look like if we filed separately? So I would definitely say the biggest red flag is definitely knowing what your spouse is bringing to the table. It's unfortunate because I feel like just with my clients, I see that they're surprised. Like when that money is expected to come and it don't come, they be calling us, well, what happened? Where's our refund? I'm like, girl, I mean, listen, you was following with us when you were single and we didn't have those problems. So I'm going to assume that the person that you brought to the table isn't laying everything out on your table at home. So you probably should have that conversation. And a lot of times they do digging back and they realize that, again, their spouse had all of this debt that they didn't mention before they got married. So I'll definitely say that's a big red flag, is just, again, not knowing what your spouse is bringing to the table. I would say this is not a red flag, but what Anthony did mention in regards to like being like a full-time entrepreneur, just like myself, our incomes really do fluctuate. You know, 1 month you hit 100K, the next month you're at 10K. Even if you did hit 100K, you have to pay a whole bunch of payroll. You have to pay all these things. So I would say that when you are dating somebody who doesn't have a more stable income, that just may be of a concern, especially if you're expected to split bills, right? I know, like in today's world, especially living in New York City, where you're paying $5,000 for a studio.
That's a thing, yep.
That's out here, man. That's what it costs. Okay. But it's like, okay, if y'all expected to split bills and your income is fluctuating, that may be a red flag. This just may mean that some more money system need to be put in place to where when that good month is happening, we set aside 3 to 6 months of runway just in case things dry up a bit. So that is a little bit of something to just be aware of, less of a concern because of course you want people to chase their dreams and be entrepreneurs, but understanding like just what it comes with, a bit more risk. But then you also want to think about just income growth as well, right? Just having an idea of, okay, we just don't want to get married and just be in survival mode, living paycheck to paycheck. We want to think about how can we invest for our future. Definitely if you are married and you guys are looking to just secure a legacy, think about setting up a joint trust, right? And they also have like different trust structures to where if one spouse does pass away, all the assets in that trust gets moved to the trust of the other spouse. These things are important because you don't want the government in your business to when they don't have to be. So setting up trust allows for you both to operate through legal entities. So in the event that anything needs to be transferred or passed down, it wouldn't have to go through probate, go through court. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind as you're planning for legacy and generational wealth to be passed down with ease.
That was great. Yeah, clap it up.
One red flag that I see is, if someone always likes to like start a business and just look at someone's track record of success. Okay, again, a good chunk of our clients, women, and so we'll hear them date somebody. Oh, he's starting this, or he's this audio engineer, or he's doing this. I'm gonna invest in his business, and I'm just like. So just maybe it's a red flag, but based upon the trend and in real life, if someone hasn't had a track record of success, I'll probably stay away. Now, you can still be with that person, but just keep your money away and then maybe do the joint account later on if you make it that far.
If you make it that far.
Well, that was a perfect segue for what I want to say. So when it comes to dating, this comes up a lot. And I'm sure you guys hear it a lot. How much money is he making? I need to be with someone who makes 6 figures, or someone who's got a great job. He's doing this. He's in finance, whatever the case. And one of the things that I want you guys to consider is instead of thinking about what they're doing currently, think about who they are. So if they are someone who is ambitious, if they are someone who is motivated, if they are someone who is driven, that to me is more important. So if you are an entrepreneur, you may fail a couple of times in multiple businesses. But when that business does hit, because you are driven, because you are ambitious, and because you are motivated, you may never have to work again. Versus the person who's got the 6-figure salary and maybe is just coasting along, but then when he loses his or she loses their job, they may have a very hard time getting another job. So think about the person, their values, what is really motivating them. Are they really passionate about what they want to do? That to me is more important than whether they're an entrepreneur or whether they're going to be, you know, someone who makes six figures. Because I can already tell I just met Anthony for the first time today. I met both of them for the first time. But I know you're going to be successful. And if you're not going to be successful in this business, you'll be successful in another business because you're motivated and driven. And so think about just the person's character and their heart versus what they have today. I think we get too caught up in what people have today. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but my husband's a public company CEO. When I met him, he was making $2,500 more than me. We were in sales. We probably were making less money than most of our friends, but we built together and we have the same values. So think about that.
Wow, clap it up. Man, y'all are good. Y'all are some solid guests, because that's a perfect segue to my next question. So this is somewhat directed to Anthony, but it's also directed to Arvia as well. You kind of just alluded to, you know, character and knowing who that person is to be able to think long term. And Anthony, you kind of work with people around long-term planning as well. So how would you say choosing the right partner impacts long-term wealth building and generational outcomes, especially in, you know, Black and brown communities?
It's very important. You know, I remember it was like 6 years ago, I met with this young doctor, and we started talking. And she was like, yeah, I want to get my finances right. I want to put money here and do this, do that. Like, cool, all right. Schedule next meeting. She brings her husband, and I later found that's not her husband. They were just been together for a long time. And the whole tone just switched up. I was like, oh, I thought you said you wanted to do this and the third. Okay. And he comes in the meeting, he's just sizing me up. I'm just like, okay, all right. And then we never talked about it ever again, okay? Until 5 years later, they broke up, right? She came, hey, Aunt, can we do, I'm like, oh man, that guy was holding you back. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, he was, right? So if you really think about it, she lost 5 years, right? And what I've noticed is that sometimes, you know, in my opinion, some men may have too big of an ego to want to have that discussion and be at the table, right? And so I think it's very important just to see someone's open-minded, if someone is willing to be coached, if someone's willing to change, someone's willing to grow. Like you said, it's the person, right? And so someone's willing to grow, be coached, put their ego to the side, have a conversation. Those are all good signs. And so I see it happen all the time too. Again, I can go on, and I probably had over 10,000 conversations, you know, with this stuff. And so I've seen the good stuff, I've seen the bad stuff, I've seen the stuff in between. And to be honest, I mean, you probably, you know, mentioned this a lot of, you know, and we'll talk about, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about prenuptials, postnups, and things of that nature, but I want to talk about that in a second. But a lot of my clients who are in their late 50s, you know, I see it happen a lot. People say, oh, it's not going to happen to me. And the thing about just divorces and whatnot, it's very expensive. You know, I've seen people spend over $600,000, $500,000, $1 million, and the people that win, I mean, it might be attorneys, okay? The lawyers win. But yeah, so that's just why it's important to really, you know, just start off on a strong foot and really look at that person's character.
Any other responses to that one?
No.
Okay. My next question kind of builds on that. So you talked about the important things to be thinking about. What's one mindset shift people need to make if they want love and money to work together and not against each other? What would you say?
What's most important is communication. It's an awkward conversation to talk about money, but once you have that conversation and you open up, and I can just again refer back to my life and when I first started dating my husband Jason and we started getting serious, we talked about how we saw our future together. We talked about, I made a mistake when I was at Howard, he went to Howard too, and I bought these dishes, these pots and pans I should have never had any business buying, and I bought these dishes and then I forgot about it and I never paid it. Anyway, my credit was jacked up from it. And I talked about that, and I told Jason when I was dating, I said, my credit's all messed up from these dishes. I need to pay these. I totally forgot about these dishes, and now it's showing up on my credit report, and we were talking about buying a house. And he was like, well, my credit's messed up too, because one of my family members took out a Shell credit card in my name. Make a very long story short, we had these open, candid conversations about errors that happened in our life that we did not want to happen for our marriage. And we wanted to make sure that we had good credit, and we wanted to make sure we were responsible, and we wanted to make sure that we were living in our means, not above our means, and a little bit even below our means. I even became a stay-at-home mom when I got pregnant with our first child because we planned so well. And I think it all boils down to having conversations, because you're going to have things that happen in your life. You're going to have credit issues. You're going to have, obviously, student debt. Things are going to come up. But it's all about communication. I think if you have the communication and you're open and vulnerable about it, you'll be fine.
Yes, that was so good. I'm definitely gonna just emphasize on getting out of survival mode, right? I feel like a lot of Black and brown individuals, we may have grown up in survival mode, like, mother and dad's working real hard to keep food on the table. When you're in survival mode, in my opinion, it's very hard to properly give love, right? Because your mind is thinking about how I'm gonna pay this next bill or how I'm gonna do this. Like, so you're not mentally fully in the game. In my opinion, I'm gonna ask, sis over here to just give her thoughts on, but like, can you even date when you're in survival mode? Like, is that okay? Because are you dating for the right reasons? Are you dating with the right intention? Are you dating and being just the right person to attract the type of person that you want as well? So I definitely want to just ask you that.
That's interesting, because that came up a couple of weeks ago. There's a young man who's currently not working. He just graduated from business school, actually Harvard Business School, and has not gotten a job yet, and he graduated in May. And he does not want to date because he doesn't feel like he's ready. He doesn't feel like he's going to be putting out his best self. I think it's very individual, because I also think if you have the right partner, you're right, that person will build you up, that person will give you confidence, that person will provide a safe space, that person will, when you lay your head down at night, that person will say, baby, you got this, I got you, we got this together, I know, I ride for you, I believe in you, and you will go in and get that job. So it really depends on the person, but I think, yeah, it's individual. At the end, it's individual, but I'm one for marriage and partnership and love and support, and if you can get it together and get your head in the right space, I think you'll do better together than alone when you're trying to conquer the hard things.
Well, how long do you stay for the hard things? asking for a friend.
Well, you have to believe in that person. You have to believe in the person. Just when are they really ambitious? Are they motivated? Or are they someone that's just talking? You have to look. I believe in my husband all day, every day. I ride for my man. And but you really have to, I know who I married, and I feel blessed. And I knew who I married when I met him, and I'm a good picker. And you guys, get good with your pickers. Become someone who can really pay attention. Look at patterns. Look at their friends. Look at their values. It's important.
That's what's up. Let's give a round of applause to that last jewel that was dropped. So to the panel, I do want to I want to get to the heart of things, and I want to wrap up with this final question that I would love for each of you to respond to. But with Level Up in NYC, part of our mission is, a lot of people think we just share events, but our mission is to help you level up in life, love, and career, right? So we share the events, but we want to put you in spaces with people like this who can share their expertise, so you can learn, from their wisdom and from the things that they've learned. So we're all about, meeting each other, getting to know other ambitious people, but also taking action, really tapping in on what we need to do. So my question for you is, what would you say is one action somebody in the audience listening to tonight can take this month or this week to improve their relationship with either money, love, or both?
I'm gonna kick it off. So definitely get good with your money. That is a fact, right? You want to have a clear understanding of what's coming in and what's going out. And then once you have that, you want to set larger goals. I'm all for just like manifesting the life that you want. And sometimes that encompasses, I call it making a future budget. So I would encourage everyone to make a future budget. So what is a future budget? So you have what you have right now. You have your income, you have your expenses. But say, for example, you want to go from renting to owning your home, right? You can estimate what that'll cost you and then what type of income you will need to sustain that. So you can start aiming upwards, whether it's, now getting into talks and negotiating with your job for a raise or starting a side hustle to get there. But once you have a clear idea of not just your goals, but actually what it's going to take to get there by quantifying that and putting a dollar amount to it, it does make it a lot easier to manifest. And I want everybody in here to level up with their finances. So that's my advice.
So, I was working with a life coach for 4 years, and so I believe in coaching. Like, coaching is worth it 1,000%. And he told me reflection is like steroids for growth, okay? And so what I would say is y'all should all, go somewhere, coffee shop or whatever, and reflect on your money script, right? What is that thing you learned from childhood about money, or what did you not see? Was it scarcity? Was it abundance? Was it scarcity? What would it look like, right? So that's step one. Put the mirror and look at it. And step two, it's begin with the end in mind, right? And so whenever I speak to clients, I'm talking about what's the North Star? Where are we going? Anthony, what do you mean? I'm like, well, hey, we're 60. Well, what does that look like? We're 50. What does that look like? And then we can then do the backwards calculation into the budget, where the money goes. And then it becomes much easier to be able to make that path. And so to kind of, recap that is reflect, spend some time, learn yourself first, think in reverse, and you got the plan. And that's how you level up. Boss.
Well, that was a perfect segue. I'm going to focus on love, of course. And if you're single or in a relationship and you do want to be, married, I would say what's most important is work on yourself first. Make sure you are the best version of yourself as you're dating, as you're navigating life. As Anthony said, really work on yourself, because dating is hard these days, as you guys know. There's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of confusion, but when you're confident in who you are as a human, you can deal with it. You can deal with everything that comes towards you. And also, you are going to attract what you are. You are what you attract. So if you're in a good place and you feel good about yourself, that's what you're going to attract. So really work on yourself and do a deep dive, whatever works the best for you. I know a lot of people have therapists now, which I think is amazing, but really spend time learning about yourself, what you need to improve on, so you can be the best version of yourself when you get in that relationship.
Makes sense. There we go. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Arvia, Anthony, and Sheneya. This has been amazing. So you all have been part of the first ever Level Up in NYC podcast. We want to keep this going. But before we wrap this up, I hope that there's something you can take away, something valuable that you heard that you can actually apply to your own life or within your network. But one thing I want to say is each of these individuals up here are very, very, very successful people that I admire, and I highly recommend that you tap in with them. So they're part of the Level Up in NYC family. Every time Anthony has an event, I share his event in the newsletter. He has one coming up, so make sure you look out for that. Arvia, all of her events we share. Any full financial event that we see, we share. But highly recommend, if you need a financial advisor, tap in with Anthony and Vivid Advisory. If you need a dating coach, Arvia is taking clients, you know what I mean? Follow her on IG. And also, if you just want to come to a really, really dope singles event, she throws them, once a month, if I'm not mistaken? Or
Not once a month, but
every now and then.
often.
She throws some high quality dating events. And then if you need your taxes or, for your business individually, or for, if you need your financial situation put in order, tap in with Ms. Wilson over here. So I want to thank y'all again for being part of the first ever Level Up in NYC podcast. Be on the lookout for that on YouTube. I want to thank our guests again for dropping so many gems and sharing so much wisdom. But don't get up, don't move your seats. As our guests make their departure from the stage, we are going to move into the next part of our program. So don't leave just yet. But I just want to give our guests one more round of applause before they head out for being part of the show.